So looking at the pool equipment, we have this whole thing from where the water, you can see it, to this part over here. It's called the pool pump. Now, in this case for this customer, the pump is only 3 years old. So when something goes bad on it, we only need to replace this part, which is the motor. Unfortunately, the motor stopped working. So what we do is we separate it here in the middle. We keep this part of it here. This part of the plumbing and the pump stays. This part of the pump gets replaced, and this is called the motor. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out these 4 bolts on this side and these 4 bolts on this side. Then I can separate it, take out the gaskets and everything, and go from there. Before we do that, this does have power going to it, so I'm going to disconnect the power to make sure it is safe to operate on it. Once the power stops, I will use my tools to separate it. The first thing I'm going to use is my drill. Got 4 bolts here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I'm going to change my connection to this one. I'm going to separate these. One. Two. 3, 4. Now, this is going to slide out pretty easily, but I'm going to pick up my things because it makes a big wet mess and I don't want my tools getting wet. So I'm going to grab these things, pick them up, these things, pick them up, move this away. As soon as I slip this out, generally all the water that's in there is going to come pouring out. Let's take a look. There we go. All the water's out. So now we have to replace this gasket here, this gasket here. This piece stays, and then we replace this also. So now we continue. And my tools still got a little bit wet. These gaskets make your fingers really dirty, so I usually like grabbing them with pliers. There's one. This one's not usually too bad, but I'll just take this out the same way. Then I gotta separate this, which is called the diffuser. Once the diffuser comes out, the next piece of equipment, or piece of, I would say equipment that's in here, is called the impeller. The impeller is what spins. It's kind of like a boat propeller. It's an impeller, it spins. And that's what makes the water move. You have these little grooves here. So as the water gets sucked in, it moves the water. And you get these little grooves inside too. And that's what helps the water get moved around. So we got the diffuser, the impeller. We're gonna need to keep those. Now this is called the seal plate. Take out the seal plate. Right here is a very important piece called the shaft seal. So you got two parts to a shaft seal. You got this piece that goes inside and this piece that connects to the impeller. This is kind of tricky to take out, so I usually just flip it and poke it through this side. And just like that, it comes out. And this is the other piece of the shaft seal right here. Now it's really important to not touch it with your fingers. I'm doing it with this one because it's the old one and it's getting replaced. But the oil from your fingers, because your fingers have oil on them, can mess up the seal that this forms. So it's really important to not touch this with your fingertips. All right, now we've got our seal plate, our diffuser, and our impeller are all over here. I'm gonna take these O-rings here that are garbage, put them aside. And the last thing to do is to remove the electrical connection, which is on this side. So for that, I'm gonna flip it over, put it this way. We got 4 screws keeping it together, so we're going to take these out. And this little lid just pops right off. It's kind of stuck. See something to pop it off. There we go. Always to be safe, it's good to check to make sure that even though you turn the power off, that there isn't electricity there so you don't get shocked when you try to touch it. So I'm going to use my meters here, and I'm going to put one on one side, one on the other, and if it says 0, then it's safe. It says 0, the connections are there. I'm also going to check it to ground just to make sure still 0, and check the other one to ground, still 0. We are safe. So now I can take those out, I can touch it with my hands, and it's safe to do. So out, take this out. Magnet is sometimes too good on my tools. Okay, now we've got all the wires loose. Gotta make sure that they're straight so that I can pull this out. A helicopter, like right by us. And then this little liquid tight connector is what it's called, a liquid tight connector. Just have to unscrew it and it should come right out. And there we go. So now we gotta be careful with the cable to not damage it when we try to pull it out. So just like I said, try to keep it nice and straight. It slips right out. And now this is the old motor. That is officially garbage. And this is a new motor right here with the bolts that we're gonna need that were there before, because we're still gonna reconnect it to the existing pump. So just the way we disassembled it, we have to reassemble it over here. The first thing that we're gonna put on is gonna be the seal plate. But before we put the seal plate, we need to make sure we put the new gasket in there. So I'm gonna grab the new gasket, or the new shaft seal, which is this guy right here. Now, the part that connects is made out of rubber, and rubber does not slide very easily. So a very important thing to try to do is get some lubricant. Like this right here, which is a silicone-based lubricant, I believe. Will apply to this, and you see I'm not touching this with my hands. I don't want any fingerprints on there. So I'm going to put the lubricant on this side, and then it's going to slip right into there. And I'm going to push it down with a screwdriver, with the back of a screwdriver, so that I don't have to touch it. So put a little bit on my finger and just carefully grab this on the sides, apply it all the way around, and that's going to help it slide a lot more easily into here. So we put it in, just drop it down, and then with a screwdriver, the back of one, we're going to just push it right in. So you just got to help turn it a little bit. Now that it's a little more lined up, straighten it out a little. This is actually the wrong screwdriver. I don't normally use this one. Usually this is a better one. It's kind of hard to do on the video, so I'm just going to do it on here and then I'll show it. You don't want to push too hard where you can crack it because it's made out of ceramic. And that's basically it. It looks like the top is not as far in as the bottom, so I'm just going to push it in a little bit more. Make sure it's nice and even. Just being a little stubborn. There we go. Now it's all the way in there, nice and even, all the way around. If you want to, you can take a little rag and just kind of wipe it off. Make sure your fingers don't touch it. That's fine. Then, once that's there, this can actually slip right in here. And that's, you have to make sure you line it up in the right direction because you can put this in any direction. So it actually tells you, probably right on this side, usually tells you somewhere what the top is. I know what it is because I do it all the time, but essentially this is the top, at least for this pump. So it makes it easy, and this has a label on it, is the top also. So you just put this here. Now I'm putting it backwards because I was trying to show it off. Okay. So this is in place. The next thing to go is the other piece of the shaft seal, which is this. You can touch all the sides, but again, shiny side, you don't want to touch it. You're just going to push that right down into the motor shaft, which is, if I can get this thing straight. Right there. So, and you want to make sure that this shiny part is facing that shiny part. The two ceramics are facing each other. Let's push that down, and you just push. Just slide it down as much as you can. The impeller, when you screw it in, is going to help with that. So this is threaded here on the motor shaft, and this is the impeller, which is also threaded. So what you're going to do is you're just going to line it up and spin it into place as tight as you can, and we're going to tighten that a little bit once we finish doing this and we open up the other side. We're going to tighten it some more. So this is as tight as I can get it from here. The next thing we're going to put is the diffuser. This also slides right into place. The flat part right here on this particular one lines up with this part as well. We got to screw it in. You can either use a drill or you can hand do it with the screwdriver. I usually put the drill on the weakest setting so it doesn't over tighten and break it. So I just do it nice and soft. There we go, not too much. It's probably not even worth it to use a drill for this, but I'm just used to it, and I like using tools that are battery or electrically operated, so I do it that way. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to have the O-ring that goes right here and the O-ring that goes right here. So those two are right here. We need to lubricate those the same way we lubricated the other one, so it slips in easily. For this, I'm just gonna slip it right over it. Goes in nice and smooth. And then I'm gonna apply the lubricant all around it. It's okay to touch this with your fingers. Circle this all the way around. Just apply a healthy amount of lubricant on there. There we go. And then the same thing goes for the other one. So this is called the diffuser O-ring, and this is called the seal plate O-ring. So every time you replace a motor, you should be replacing the shaft seal, the diffuser O-ring, and the seal plate O-ring. Those are all really important to replace. This one's a little tighter, or a little tougher, because it's like you got to stretch it out. See, it keeps trying to come up. Once I put the lubricant on there, I think it's going to help it stay. But it's supposed to be kind of stretched out so that it provides a really good seal when it's all tightened up. Once again, I'm going to put some lubricant on my finger. I put a lot more on this one because it's a bigger O-ring. Spread it all the way around. This is going to help it seal and not dry out. And it also helps it slip into the housing for the pump when we try to put it in there. So just go around a couple times. Make sure this is nice and lubricated. Clean your fingers. And that's all set. Now all we have to do is the electric part. Okay, so for that, I'm going to turn the motor around. Take it out of the styrofoam here. Okay. So, now we're going to do the electrical connection here. Should be pretty straightforward now. Got to take out the back of the motor cover. Once again, I like using my drill for all these things because it makes it a little bit faster in my opinion. Here we go. When I'm unscrewing, I always go full power. When I'm tightening, I always go low power. Okay, so now we have the inside of the motor. We just have to connect it the same way the other one was connected. So, first we gotta get the cables in. Try to do that as straight as possible. There we go. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to take this off. We don't need this piece. I'm just making it so that it doesn't have as much to tighten, but I'd rather have a stronger connection on the liquid tight connector. So, bring this in here. Twist it into place and actually separate this if I can. Get some tools for that. Sometimes the easiest part of the job becomes the harder part of the job. now this will screw in here a lot more easily. Screw it in all the way. So this is a liquid tight connector, and then this is called conduit. Slip the conduit into the connector. Of course, this is going to be problematic now for some reason. Let's see if I can get it in. Come on. Come on. Pliers. Okay. Okay. So in order for the conduit to seal properly, all these little teeth here have to be pulled out a little bit. Just gotta pull these out so that the conduit can go into the connector. And then it'll go in easily. And then I can tighten it. Right, let's see if that was enough. Yep, nice and easy. And then this thing comes and tightens it so that those teeth get kind of pulled in again, and that's what's going to prevent water from getting in here, which is really important. This is where the electrical components are, so you don't want water getting in here. All right, so now we just have to connect the electric. Now, we got a black, red, and green. Black and red are interchangeable. They can go on either of the terminals, which are line 1 and line 2, which are labeled on here. Okay, so you can go into either one of those, and green is ground, so that goes into the green screw. So we're gonna grab our drill, pull this out because it's a little bit easier to do that, and then just put it back in. What I usually do is I'll take my pliers, I'll push this in from this side to kind of help all the wires stay in there as I drill it down. And I'm gonna put it on the lowest strength here. All right, that's good. And then I gotta connect line 1 and 2. So I'm just pull this all the way out because you don't really need to, but it makes it a little bit easier to get in there. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put this kind of right over the hole. And then the screw is going to go right in here. So again, I'm going to use this to help keep the wires under the screw as much as possible. I tightened it down a little too much. It might be better to hand tighten these so that that doesn't happen. Alright, that's perfect. That's good. This side, put all the way out again. Get the cable into place. Get it started. Use pliers to bring it in as much as possible. There we go. That's perfect. So now what we can do, the electric is there. I can turn it on to make sure that it works. But when I turn it on, I don't want to touch anything here. Let's see. Yep, it works. I just quickly turned it on and back off just to make sure that it would actually do what it's supposed to. So now we confirmed we got power. Something that I probably should have done before I put on the diffuser is you get a little wrench. This is the shaft of the motor. You can actually do this, and now it's locked in there. You can actually tighten the impeller by holding that in place and spinning the impeller manually to really tighten it down. As a matter of fact, I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to take the impeller off, or the diffuser off, so I can make sure the impeller is really in there. Because all these components between the pump, front, and the motor, you got to make sure that it's waterproof. So now I've tightened the impeller as much as I can, and it can't spin because I have the shaft that the impeller is threaded into locked in. So I'm manually tightening the impeller as much as I can, then I can just pull that right out, and then I can just put the diffuser back in. No big deal. Okay, I've got all my connections done. I just have to lift this up and slip it in here. Should go in pretty easily, especially with all the lubricant that I used. Okay, now all we have to do is put in the 8 bolts that we used to, that we took out when we first needed to remove the motor. Got the 2 parts that I need. And I usually leave this lid off until I completely finish in case I need to access the electrical components ever. So I usually would just leave that open until I'm completely finished. I'll test the pump. Once this is all set up, I'll test the pump with this open just to make sure I don't need to come back in there, because sometimes when you're moving the pump around like I was doing to put it back into place, some of the wires can become loose or something. You just don't know what's going to happen. So it's good to leave it open just in case you need to access it.